So, thinking back to the late 90s and early 2000s, what is a piece of technology or trend that you remember being really popular at the time?
The 80s and 90s.
90s and 2000s
90s and
and the
2000s.
early 2000s.
Man, technology was just like starting to boom. The internet, like in the 90s, it was the internet. I started in a chat room with my buddy. He was going to University of Michigan Flint, and the University of Michigan Flint had this chat room called, I think it was called Grex, and you had to like put in all of the information and to actually just get connected. And I used to lock up the phone line with everything, and I just remember it being like the coolest thing before AOL Instant Messenger and texting on a cell phone and everything else. So that was, yeah, mid 90s.
What was the world like to experience before 9/11?
Wow. Different, happier, less secure, just a little bit more frivolous and free. After 9/11, a lot of things just locked up and locked down, and the world got a lot smaller. I think it made a lot of people realize that the world is not a safe place. The world is actually very scary, and anything could happen at any moment. But before then, a lot happier.
What is a song or movie from around the year 2001 that brings back strong memories for you, and why?
A song or a movie? Oh boy. I listened to a lot of rap back then, so there was a lot of Cash Money Millionaires playing in my car. And I'm just gonna say the Big Timers in general, because to this day I still love the Big Timers, and pretty much anything from their record albums brings back a lot of good memories.
Can you recall a specific activity or hobby that you or people around you knew you were really into before? Like, what was an activity that you and your friends all did before 9/11?
Before 9/11? Something similar to what you do, like now with skateboarding and Jackass, the show. We did stuff like that. We made it our own. We took a video camera and we started videotaping ourselves, and then my buddy Brian would cut it up and make it and edit it and make it his own and piece it all back together and put it to like music and that kind of stuff.
What's like a fashion trend from that era that you either loved or absolutely despised? And what do you think about it now?
I didn't really despise any of them, and I didn't disagree with anything, but I think my least favorite was like the really baggy Janko look. Like, I don't know, I just couldn't get around. I just couldn't do it myself. I couldn't do it. I didn't care if other people did it, but what I think about it now, I don't know. I'm indifferent. Doesn't matter to me. People can be whatever they want.
What is a relatively lighthearted or funny memory you have from like around that time? Like leading up to that event?
Hanging out with my buddy Mike Jones, and before 9/11 happened, he would always take my car because he didn't have one. We were both worked for Dow Chemical as co-ops, and he would be like, "Hey man, can I go get some lunch?" I was like, "Yeah, here's my keys." And he would always be like, "Dude, I love your car so much. I love your car so much." And he would bump my subs, and he would tweak everything all out and mess everything up. And I think he just wanted to drive my car. He didn't even want the food.
Can you describe where you were at the event of 9/11 and what you were feeling?
I was in my office at Dow Chemical. I was inputting some information into a database for the lab. And then everybody was talking and, whatever, like normal chatter, like through the open hallway or whatever, and then it went silent. And then all of a sudden, my boss came and said, "Hey, you need to come into the break room right now." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And we all walked into the break room, and we literally spent the rest of the day in lockdown in the break room because you might not know this, but Michigan has a few different companies and sites that are on the hit list for terrorism. Dow Chemical is one of them. So they locked us completely down. We couldn't leave. We couldn't go anywhere. I missed school that day. But nobody, I think they even canceled school. I'm not 100% sure. And we literally I watched the first plane. They kept replaying it over and over. And then I literally live saw the second plane hit. And I was just shocked. Everybody was shocked. Everybody was silent. Some people started crying. Yeah, it was a very rough moment in our history.
Yeah. In your opinion, what were some of the most significant ways that we as an American society changed after the attack?
I mean, we locked ourselves down. We didn't really have a Department of Homeland Security. We do now, and that was established after 9/11. The war on terror was, George Bush, our president at the time, also established the war on terror, and we went after all entities that had anything to do with that day, and we spent hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars over 20 years fighting an idea, not a country, not a people, multiple peoples, and just an idea. And it was the country completely changed over the course of that 20 years. Multiple changes. Like I said, airport security, the biggest one there is there was no such thing as TSA. You used to be able to go with your entire family to the gate. They would give you a hug before you walked onto the airplane, and then they would leave. You can't do that now. You have to have a ticket to get on the plane. And now you have to go through, security. And now there are programs out there like TSA PreCheck where you pay money to go through security faster. And it's been progressively changing. That single moment, alliances were created. Alliances were broken. Global countries, the global economy has just completely changed from that single moment.
So, do you think airport security was one of the more important things that we fixed? Or what do you think is an important lesson or important aspect of security that we fixed after the event?
So at some point, just like with anything else, sometimes the more you tighten your grip, the more things you start to lose. They just start slipping through your fingers. We can only get so secure before whatever we're securing becomes unusable, and nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to bother with it or anything. So hence why they actually created. They realized back then that. I'm not saying that airline or airport security is not important. Clearly it's important. But back then when it first kicked off, when they first established it all, you used to have to get to the airport, maybe a half hour to an hour before the flight. When the security increased tremendously, I think it was like 3 to 4 hours prior to flight because we didn't know what we were doing. It's a lot better now. It's a lot more streamlined, but still some people complain about it. And they've loosened up a lot of things now too, and they've instituted those programs that I mentioned earlier, like TSA PreCheck, so that you can speed up the process to go faster. But over time, things that we learned lessons, right? The same thing in the IT world, like cybersecurity and the terrorism that goes along with, hackers coming into and trying to hack into the network. You can lock down the network so much, but if it becomes unusable for you and me, we're not going to be able to do anything with it. No one's going to be able to do anything with it. So there's a very fine line with keeping things secure and usable at the same time. So that's just remaining vigilant, I guess, is probably the best one word for that. Just be vigilant in general.
How do you think the 9/11 attacks influenced like the political landscape of the U.S. and its relationships with other nations?
I think in some ways it helped, for instance, George Bush to get reelected, because a lot of times, from what I know, we don't typically vote out an incumbent president during a wartime. Some we have, but during a wartime environment. So I think, he wasn't like 100% popular, but I think it solidified his resolve based on people believed in him to be able to actually take care of the problem. Hence why he got reelected. So we could have had a different president after him if 9/11 wouldn't have happened, and our course of history could have been totally different just from that alone. But we didn't. We had George Bush for 8 years, and his influence, I think, actually solidified and helped our main alliances, like with Canada, with Mexico, with Europe, in particular Great Britain. And I think it also hurt some loose acquaintances, like with Russia and China, and I think that was, again, the start of like the decline and why we're in the position that we're in now, why everything is so tense that it really kind of like that moment in 9/11 really pulled people either this way or this way that don't agree. Whose side are you on?
Yep. All right, well, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good talk.
Yeah.